The illusion of learning Portuguese. A ilusão de aprender português. Well, this title and this topic I think is a very necessary one because nowadays when we learn language, when you are learning Portuguese, I know that you do a lot of things. You put so much effort into learning Portuguese. You do so many exercises. You try to practice. You attend classes. You travel to Portugal to not just to travel, but to have an opportunity to immerse yourself in the language. And you may think, oh, I've been doing so much things, but I haven't got near my results. And doesn't matter how hard I try, it seems like it's still so far away. Maybe when you start learning Portuguese, you thought, maybe in 1 year, I can have like basic conversation with a native speaker. But 1 year, maybe 2 years have passed and you still have this challenge. It's still difficult for you to have a simple, easy conversation with a native speaker. Could be your friend, your in-laws, your partner, your Portuguese friends, the Portuguese waiter in a restaurant, at a cafe. You may want to go to a store in Portugal and you want to order whatever you want to order, but you still struggle. And you know that learning a language is not like this. And you do some things and very quickly you're going to learn the language. If someone tells you that you can learn a language fluently, let's say 1 or 2 months, you'll think, wait, this is a scam. This is not true. To learn a language, you need time to do that. So you already know that, yes, you need some time to learn new things, to understand the grammar, to memorize everything. And you are doing whatever you think you have to do it in order to be fluent in Portuguese, right? So you understand that you need to go through the process. There's no pill, no magic pill, no technology that we put automatically all the information inside your brain. You know that you need some time, right? But that time, after 1, 2 years, 3, 4 years or more, you think, oh, this amount of time, this months or these years already had passed. Já passaram. By now, I should have achieved a certain level, but I haven't. And you, while you were in class, reading and writing, doing all kind of exercises like grammar drills, reading texts and answering the questions about those texts, you had the feeling that you were learning, right? And your teacher explains the grammar to you, explains the words, how to use those words, in which situation and context, and you feel that you are learning, right? And you think that you are learning. But the reality is, when the time comes that you actually need to use whatever you already learned in real life with a real native speaker, you can't. So think, if you have been studying, if you have been learning, you have been doing everything in your power, everything that you know that you are supposed to do to get fluent in Portuguese, but when you need to use the language with a Portuguese native speaker, you can't. Do you really think that you learned something? Or were you just wasting your time? You kind of know, but you don't know. Knowledge is just useful, meaningful. It knowledge just makes a difference if you can use the knowledge that you have. If you cannot use the knowledge that you have, it is useless. So I think that this video, this live here, is like a wake-up call for a lot of you, because if you are learning the traditional way, for example, the same way that you learned things, and being more specific, languages in school, if you are learning the same way as an adult, you are learning Portuguese in the traditional way, the same way you learn things when you were in school, so probably you're not achieving your goals because you're not practicing. You are just studying, you are deep down, you are diving yourself in rules, in exercises, in theory, and you're not practice in real life. And who am I to tell you this? Olá, I'm Sara. I'm Portuguese. I'm also a Portuguese teacher specialized in listening comprehension, which means helping you understand the Portuguese even if they speak fast and even if they eat letters and they speak in a different way from the way that you learn in a traditional language school, in a traditional class, the Portuguese class. So I'm here today to help you understand what is missing and some things that you can shift so you can improve your Portuguese and also make sense everything that you have been doing so far until now to learn Portuguese, for that to be actually useful for you and not just knowledge that you have and you never used it before. You never used it again. Okay, you learned in class, for example, you learned the difference between the verbs ser and estar, and you completely understand the difference between these two verbs. You understand that in English we just have one verb, we don't distinguish. For example, if I want to say my age, if I want to talk about my name, or if I am in a certain place, is just the same verb in English. Well, in Portuguese we have different verbs, when in English we use just one. But you already understood the difference. But when you need to speak, you make the mistake of using just one verb to everything. For example, if I want to introduce myself in Portuguese, I say eu sou a Sara. Eu sou, I am, right? But if I want to say that I am here, I am here is different from the I am when I introduce myself and say I am Sara. I say eu estou aqui. So we have eu sou and eu estou. In English, it's just I am. So understanding the difference between sou and estou, I am, these two verbs in Portuguese that they mean I am, this is very important for you to understand the difference. Yes, it's the theory. You need it. Of course you do need it. The problem is if you just focus on that all the time and you don't focus, for example, on practicing, speaking, not in a robotic way, like in an artificial way, because sometimes in a class the speaking exercise is very artificial, but speaking with a native speaker, which is very necessary, and also listening and watching real content, real European Portuguese content. And you may say, oh, but I have my textbook and my teacher and a language course. Well, that's not the same. That's not the same. Because if you have been learning in a class, probably, And now, if you have the chance to go to the real world and talk, speak, have a conversation with a random person on the streets, could be the waiter, could be asking for information to a random person on the street, you will realize that they don't speak the same way that person that recorded the audio for a textbook or your course or your teacher speaks. What they speak the way they speak in a textbook, in a language course, usually is the language very well enunciated. You know when they speak and they pronounce everything very clearly, and it's very easy for you as a non-native speaker to understand. If you think that what I just did speaking like this was weird, this is the kind of Portuguese that you have been exposed to. Of course, I'm speaking in English, but the equivalent in Portuguese. When you learn with a content that they are speaking very clearly to you and they pronounce every single letter in Portuguese, that's not real life Portuguese. In real life Portuguese native speakers speak fast, they eat letters, sometimes they mispronounce things because native speakers do that, and this way of speaking is not taught in the class, because they think that they should teach always in the slow version of the language, speaking every single sound very well enunciated, very clear, very correct, right? Well, in the beginning, you can use this kind of content, listening and watching something slow, something that was made for non-native speakers to learn the language. Okay? Although it's not real life language, not real life Portuguese. You can at first. But the real issue is that people just stay in this kind of content all the time, always. And they move on from the basic levels to the intermediate levels and to the advanced levels. But when it comes to listening and understanding, they are still with a very basic listening skill, because they still listening to non-real artificial content in Portuguese, something made for them to understand them as non-native speakers. Okay, so I have been talking with you here. You can also send me your comments and I will answer them. And I also have here no meu computer, if you don't know, computador means computer. And I have here my notes because I wanted to deliver something very good to you with organized information. So one thing I was thinking about like an analogy is, for example, swimming. Do you know how to swim? I know how to swim. I will confess that I can swim, but I cannot open my eyes underwater. Yes, I cannot. It's very difficult for me. So thinking about swimming, how do you learn how to swim? You can read a book about it. You can talk about people that have learned how to swim before. You can talk, for example, to an athlete that does it for a living, right? A medalist, a professional swimmer. You can learn the physics. the physics, the math of swimming, how the body is inside the water, and things that we can do to swim faster. If you do like this, you can swim faster, and you go like this with this movement, right? And you are going to swim faster when you go like this versus like this, right? And you can learn how that works, why other techniques are not that good. But it doesn't matter how much theory, how much things you learn about swimming, it doesn't matter, because if you don't actually go and dive, go and to the beach, go and inside the pool, if you don't actually swim, you will never be able to say, I know how to swim. If you don't actually swim, if you don't jump in the pool and you swim, can you say, oh, I know how to swim because I have read all the books about swimming. I read Michael Phelps' biography and I know all the techniques that he used to win all his Olympic medals. Can you say, oh, I know how to swim because of that? No, right? You cannot. So you need to swim to learn how to swim, and then you practice and you get good at it, and then you can say, I know how to swim, right? The same with Portuguese. You need the explanation. For example, if you enroll in a class to learn how to swim, you'll have a teacher explaining to you how to swim and all the safety things that you need to know because you don't want to drown, all of that. You need that. So in Portuguese, when you learn Portuguese, yes, you need the theory, yes, you need to understand how to use the words and the grammar, all of this. But that's a small part of the process. And here it comes the SPA method. Is the method that I kind of created, and I'm using this acronym to be easier to understand and to remember. The SPA method. SPA, SPA method. So what is the SPA method? S is study, P practice, and A apply. And how much time you will spend in each step. The study, which is the first letter, the S, you will spend just a few hours. Let's say that you are learning as the explainer I was giving to you. Ser and estar. Two verbs. We use them in the different situations, but in English we just have one verb. It's to be. So, what are you going to do? Let's say that you need 15 minutes or 1 hour. So 1 hour it's too much. 15-20 minutes to understand the difference between ser and estar. And you have someone that explains you the difference. Okay? After that, after the study part of the process of understanding ser and estar, you need to practice a lot. Practice, 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 practice. So I know that we tend to go over the theory over and over again, reading the explanation, listening to the explanation, but that's not important. Because when you are face to face to a Portuguese and you want to introduce yourself, you want to say where you are, etc., you don't have to remember the rule. You just need to understand it and be able to use it unconsciously. So studying is the first step and it's a very short step. The most thing that you need to do is practice. Okay, so let's say that you study something for 1 hour. You need at least 5 hours of practice for that 1 hour of study session. That's why when you have intensive classes 2 hours a day from Monday to Friday, in the end you end up not memorizing anything. You need to review everything again. You don't recall, you don't remember. You feel way too overwhelmed, and you feel like, I need to do this all over again. Because you spend those 2 hours a day from Monday to Friday doing what? Most of the time. Just learning more and more and more and more and more. And if you don't have time, because I know nowadays everyone is busy. You may have a spouse, partner, you may have kids, you have your job. We all need to work, right? Adults need to work. Most of us do. We have a lot of responsibilities. And if you even have learning a language on top of it, it's just one more thing that you need to balance. And you really need to schedule things, you need to be organized and manage your time to be able to do everything they need to do. So if you are just studying and not practicing, and practicing the right way, you are wasting your precious time. Again, learn one thing, like the time that you need to understand the explanation, like the theory, because sometimes some people can understand it faster than others. For example, for the Spanish speaker, in Spanish we have the same logic, ser and estar, although we don't use them exactly the same way. But if you are French, English, if you speak English, French, Italian, then you don't have ser and estar, you just have one verb. So in theory, it will get more time for you to understand when to use ser and estar, because in your languages you don't have this difference. Okay, so sometimes it takes more time for us to understand something, can be 15 minutes, sometimes more. But once you understand the rule, start practicing. And you noticed, you start practicing, and even if you know, you understand, you remember the rule, you will make mistakes. Because you need to practice. It's like swimming. You may understand everything that you need to do to swim well because you learned the theory, but you need to put yourself in the pool, na piscina, and you start doing it. Because it's not just a level of understanding in your head how it is. It's a lot of things. For example, in terms of pronunciation, you may understand and you can tell the difference between two very similar sounds. For example, and ow. But your muscles are not used to that different movement. So you need to train your muscles. Mind-mouth connection, mind-muscle connection. Okay? So in terms of pronunciation, you need to listen to the explanation, right, of the sounds. You need to be able to distinguish two different sounds. And once you understand the difference between the two similar sounds, you need to be able to pronounce them the right way. But it doesn't matter. It's not just about understanding the different sounds. Oh, this is ow, this is ow. Okay, I got it. One is nasal, one is not. And I can understand my ear. I can understand the difference between the two. But now you need to train your muscles to all this part, all here, right? To be able to pronounce it. And it takes time. Okay? What else do I have here for you? and you can also send me questions about this very same topic. If you just here now, if you just jumped here, this very moment, I'm talking about the illusion of learning Portuguese, learning a language. You think that you are learning, but you're not. And why is that? Because you're just focusing on theory, not on practicing. So when you have the chance to use the language, you cannot, because you haven't practicing enough using the right techniques, the right way to practice. So I have here, there's a lot of things that you can do, and it will, a lot of things that will help you with this, but I separated here 3 things. Okay, I don't want to overwhelm you, just 3 things that you can start doing now. So how can you break this illusion and actually start using European Portuguese? How can you start speaking, understand, and be understood in Portuguese? So first one, speak every day and to yourself. If you don't have anyone to speak with, you speak to yourself. And no, you're not crazy. Okay, this is with strategy. This is something that will help you. And if you feel some resistance doing it, don't listen to it, because when we start doing something new, something different, it's against our habit. Like if you have the habit of brushing your teeth every morning, it's very easy to do. You don't even need to think about it. You go with the flow and you just do autopilot. But if it's something new, it's not autopilot yet. You need to make it become autopilot, part of you. Okay, and you know that you need consistency to learn the language. So when you build your courage and you think, I'm going to learn Portuguese, I'm going to achieve fluency in Portuguese, of course I am, I can do it, I'm clever, I'm intelligent, I'm capable, and I'm courageous, right? And you think, if I don't have this courage inside of me, let's start practicing and I will build this courage. Okay, so speak every day, even if it's just to yourself. Say out loud what you're doing. For example, now I'm making dinner. Let's make dinner. Vou fazer o almoço. Vou fazer o almoço. And you probably already realized that it's almost impossible not to think about anything when you are in the bathroom washing your teeth, you are cooking, you go to the post office, you go to the supermarket, you're not talking with someone, your mind is always working. It's impossible not to think about anything. So if you are thinking about something, even in your mind, why not in Portuguese? Even if you don't have much knowledge in Portuguese, you can just add the words that you know. Let's say the full sentence is in English, but one of those words in Portuguese. So switch to Portuguese. It's not, in Portuguese we say 8 and 80, the extremes. You don't need to go from 8 to 80 like this. It's a process. You just keep going. You start, and let's say you say a sentence in English and you add one Portuguese word. Amazing. You do this a couple of times until you feel that you can add more Portuguese words, and so on and so forth. And you practice. And if you think it's better just to talk to yourself when you're alone, do it. And you'll see progress. And if you record yourself, you record it just to yourself, okay? You don't need to show it to me or to anyone. If you record yourself speaking Portuguese, after some time, when you go back to the first audios, you realize how much you have improved. But if you don't record yourself speaking Portuguese, you won't notice. If you have a kid, or you were a kid, right? Do you know those relatives that don't see the kid for months or years? They say, "Oh, you have grown so much. Cresceste tanto." For them, the difference, it's huge, it's evident, because they haven't seen the kid or they haven't seen you for years. But because you are the kid, or you are with the kid, you are the parent, etc., you see the kid every day, you don't really, you notice the difference, but it's not like, oh my God, because you are with the kid every day, you don't really notice that much some things. So the same here. If you record yourself speaking, when you go back and you listen to your audios, you see how much you have improved. And you want to know if you are improving or not. You need to measure it. And how are you going to measure if you don't record yourself? So, second thing, listen to authentic things. Authentic, real content. What kind of content? Things made by Portuguese to Portuguese. From Portuguese to Portuguese. Forget the slow audio. Listen to real Portuguese speakers with natural speed and accents. Okay? Again, it's something gradual that you start doing. Don't expect and don't want to understand everything once you start, because you're practicing, you are getting better. So think that this is the process. Now you understand 10%, but you keep on listening and watching to authentic Portuguese things, and you improve. And you improve. Okay? And 3, join real conversations, whether it's in study groups, classes, or kind of events. Join them. For example, if you're living in Portugal, you can check your Junta de Freguesia. Junta de Freguesia. Because they always organize workshops, events, festivals, different kind of events where you live in your neighborhood. Okay? Junta de Freguesia. And they're going to do it in Portuguese, of course. Okay? But don't put too much pressure on you to understand everything and to get everything at first always. It's not realistic. It's not going to happen. And if you think that you're going to be great and amazing always, all the time, you get frustrated and probably you will give up. And I don't want you to give up. So, for example, think, if you are a basic student, you are basic, you are doing your best, but you are a basic student, your Portuguese is a basic level. Don't put pressure on you to understand or to be able to have a conversation like an intermediate, advanced, or even a native speaker, because you're not going to. You are a basic student. So if you are a basic student, you are going to speak and understand and everything about Portuguese in your level, right? If you are an intermediate learner, the Portuguese that you will speak, the Portuguese that you understand, your conversations will be on that level. So don't push yourself, don't pressure yourself to do something that's out of your level. It's not realistic. For example, for me, I'm not an English native speaker. It's not about just about language, it's also about culture. I'm not going to be I'm not going to speak like a English native speaker from London, because I'm not from London, or from Massachusetts, or from Kansas, or from LA, because I'm not. I'm Portuguese. Of course, I do my best to speak English well, because I want you to understand me, but I'm not going to speak like a native speaker. That's not my goal. So the same with you. It's not realistic for you to try to understand and speak like an advanced student if you started 2-3 months ago. First, you don't need to put that pressure on you. Second, you go nowhere with that pressure of, oh, I have to understand everything. No, you need the process. If I tell you, oh, I have a magic pill, I have this AI that you just press 2 buttons and suddenly you speak Portuguese fluently, would you believe me? You wouldn't, because you know that's not possible. There's a process to it. To learn a language, that's a process. How many years an athlete needs to be good enough to go to the Olympics? How much time, how many hours they need to put into everything to be good enough to perform well, not just well, but to go to the Olympics or any other competition, perform well, and eventually win. There's always a process in anything that we learn. So I was talking about the SPA method. What is the SPA method? Study, practice, and apply. So the shortest one, the one that you spend less time in, is study. Next, you're going to practice. And you practice a lot using real life content, not artificial one made for foreigners to learn language. And A, it's apply. You just use the language. So, for example, when you watch something on TV, when you watch reels, when you watch a YouTube video, let's say that you love football, soccer. You know that usually the Portuguese love football and they love soccer. Football or soccer, whatever. We say football in Portuguese, football. And there's a lot of things that you can watch and listen to in Portuguese about football. But let's say that you don't speak that well. Do you want to listen or watch something about football, about soccer, because you want to practice, or because you really love soccer, football? So A is you listen, you watch, you go to events, you talk to people, not just because you want to practice and get better, but because you want to live your life. Let me see the comments. Don't we respect my flag? Fix the flag right. The flag is right, but this is Instagram. So they reverse the image. So for me, the flag, the green is on the left and the red is on the right. I know it's tricky, like there's no possible in Instagram. I cannot change it, so it's just because it's on Instagram, okay? But he is correct. Left, right, esquerda, direita, esquerda, direita, left, right, esquerda, direita, okay? But the flag is right. Let's see. Oh, Johnny. Hamza says olá, olá, bom dia. Muito bem. So next time that okay, I forgive you. Well, you don't need to forgive him because it's not something that bad. One option would be, I really put this the other way around. I put this wrong, so for the Instagram it will be right. I don't know if it will make sense. So next time that you do something to learn Portuguese, think about the SPA method. You watch the video, you listen to the explanation, you do what you need to do, study, but then practice a lot. Practice. Okay? Practice to get better, to exercise. And you just go and live your life. Okay? If, for example, you practice, as I used to sit and start as example before. You practice ser and estar. Okay. And now you go to A, because it's SPA, S-P-A, SPA. The A in SPA is apply. So you apply, for example, your neighbor talks to you and asks, como é que estás? Estou bem. How are you? I'm good. So you answer to your neighbor, not just because you need to practice, but just because you want to answer to your neighbor. You want to have a conversation with your neighbor. Okay? So this is the biggest takeaway for you, and then I hope you apply, that you use next time that you study something Portuguese. This study just a short period of time, and then practice a lot, do the right things, and then you live your life using what you learned. Okay? So thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you next time. Ciao, ciao.